one of the things that definitely comes through here is how people who read something like Infinite Jest feel like they know Wallace, which is, I think, probably as a writer, really amazing and very creepy. And you know that you're more than your book, and you know that you're more than your persona, and yet that's also something you want from your readers, to feel like they get inside. Well, that's, Wallace talks about what fiction can do is like give us access to other consciousnesses. So it's like, that is his project. But what you see, I think, coming out here, the obsession with image definitely comes through in his literary and film and TV preoccupations. I thought it was very strategic. You have the copy of Don DeLillo's Americana on the coffee table, and Don DeLillo was like really one of the writers about our image culture in the 1980s and 1970s and up till today. And so, not to say all of this comes from Wallace's reading, but that question of what does it mean that our entire lives are suffused with these images and all we sometimes see is ourselves? What does that do to us? And then he has this very, the philosopher side, where he's reading people like Wittgenstein who are thinking about, do we get access to other minds? Are we only inside our own minds all of the time? And someone that's smart, he's living inside of his own brain all the time, but wanting to reach out and thinking that's possible, but wondering how to make that happen.
And we also are in a great Wallace destination here in Austin because of our wonderful collection at the Harry Ransom Center. And Heather, you've taught those papers, and I'm wondering if you can tell people about what's at the Harry Ransom Center and how you use it.
Yeah, so it's amazing, and it is, I was telling Holly earlier, the Ransom Center gets inundated with people during South by and things like that, because all these Wallace fans are coming through, and it is open to everyone. So if you're one of these fanboys or fangirls of Wallace or DeLillo or any number of other writers and photographers, filmmakers, all sorts of things, anyone can go. And they have, it's one of the reasons it's an amazing collection is because Wallace was an avid letter writer, as is indicated here. So he would write to people like DeLillo, and DeLillo's collection is also there. So you can actually see both sides of the conversation, which is pretty amazing and rare. And so there are things like letters, there are early drafts, both handwritten and typewritten, of Infinite Jest, and basically anything that Wallace kept is available at the Ransom Center. So that includes notebooks for The Pale King, the posthumously published novel, incomplete novel. He kept these notebooks of phrases. So he's from the Midwest, right? But you don't always know where you are or where you're from until someone calls out, like, you say things funny. And so he would keep these notebooks of just phrases that he knew were from his background that he wanted to incorporate in that last novel and other writings that are set in this place. So just all of these, and like little ephemera, postcards, things like that. But also really fun is his entire library is at the Ransom Center. So you can look at his copy of this is one of the things I show, his copy of Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, which is just filled, like he reread, and he would often write notes when he reread the books in different colors. So there's sort of like this little legacy of how many times he read the book. It's just filled with notes, and he loved words. If you've read anything by him, one of the reasons his writing is alienating for some people is he would keep these ongoing running lists of words that were just weird and like arcane, and no one uses them, and he would make sure he used them. And so you can go through his library and look at his relationship with other literary figures, but also, we were talking earlier, like he loved to read self-help books. So there's like this collection of his self-help books and his philosophy. So that's a real treasure, especially if you're, one of the things I use the collection for with students is to think about his reading process and his writing process, so how is he's a writer because he's a reader. And so you get to see that relationship through that archive, which is very, very cool. So yeah.
I think he was curious about the language of self-help, probably as someone who just consumed culture, but I think he was working really hard to stay alive. And there's something that people say about people that have committed suicide, which is that they're not trying to hurt themselves. They're killing themselves to end the pain. And so I think it was something that was consistent through his work. But hopefully, by focusing on this moment in time, which is a real success for him, he had a fancy Rolling Stone journalist fly all the way out just to spend time with him, and he wanted it. I mean, he had complicated feelings about it, but I think this was a really bright moment in his life. When Wallace passed away in 2008, I think it was incredibly devastating for so many of his fans, not because the world lost a great writer, but specifically because he'd given articulation so much. In a way, the only other writer I can think of maybe is William Styron, to the quality of wrestling with depression. He had written about it so much that it could delude a reader to believe, oh, he understands it, he can articulate it, he's conquered it. But it's not that simple, it's a disease. And I think that was it, because it leaves you feeling, well, if he could articulate himself as well as he did about it, and he still died, where does that leave the rest of us who are wrestling with the same demons?